Now, what is a germ layer? What is body cavity? What is coelom? Now, as you can see over here, we have two more terms, that is Prostomia and Gerostomia. Okay? In Prostomia, if the embryonic blastopore, please pay attention to what I am saying, if the embryonic blastopore gives rise to mouth of the organism, that is known as prostomia. If the embryonic blastopore gives rise to anus, that is known as deuterostomia. Okay, these two terms you have to remember. Now, when we get introduced to these two terms, we have to come across different body plans which were simply understood in these terms. When we have to understand body plan, first thing is that we had a acellular organization, okay, unicellular, sorry. Then we had cell aggregate organization, that was in the case of sponges. In the case of body plan, we have this cellular organization, then we have the blind sac body plan. There are three types. One is cellular, where there would be cell aggregate. One is blind sac and other is tube within tube. Now, let us see what these two are, and then we are going to understand about prostomia and deuterostomia. When I said that if the embryonic blastopore gives rise to mouth and if the embryonic blastopore gives rise to anus. Now, what is this about blind sac and tube within tube? Let us see. I am going to clear this because this is not part of Animalia. Just for understanding, I made it clear to you. Animalia is multicellular organisms. Now, what is about blind sac plan? This blind sac plan would be visible in radiata. First thing you have to know that these radiatas, they have radial symmetrical organisms which has two phylums inside it. They have blind sac plan. Blind sac plans means that there is only single opening for the body where the nutrition goes. There is a single opening for a cavity that is known as gastrovascular cavity. Now, this cavity is not to be confused by body cavity which we are going to study. Gastrovascular cavity is the cavity which is having a single opening from where the food enters, which could be termed as mouth and it could be termed as anus. The food would enter from that single opening and the food would escape out. Whatever the wastes are being generated inside the vascular cavity, they would come out from that same single opening. So, that is known as blind sac plan. Now, this is not as advanced as the tube within tube plan. When we study the phylums, we are going to see these in detail, but for now what we have is, in the tube within tube plan, there would be hypothetical organism I am making. Supposedly this is the organism. This is the outer lining of the organism. There would be a mouth which is present and there would be an opening which would be known as anus. This mouth and anus would have a tube connecting through them. That means it is an opening of the tube known as alimentary canal. So, the organism is going to have alimentary canal and that alimentary canal will have two openings. This alimentary canal is present right through the body, in the center of the body, and whatever organs are to be present, they would be present in these areas. So, this is the hypothetical representation of a bilaterally symmetrical organism that would have an alimentary canal with both the openings, and that would be classified as tube within tube plan. It will not be blind sac plan, because in the case of blind sac plan, supposedly this is an organism and this is the mouth that is known as hypostome in certain cases. This would be the gastrovascular cavity and it would be something like this, same opening. That means whatever is coming inside would go out from the same opening. This is the organism. And the inner one lies the body cavity. So, this is the blind sac plan, while this is tube within tube plan. Now, when we talk about tube within tube plan, we have prostomes and deuterostomes, and you get to know that if the embryonic blastopore gives rise to the mouth first, then it would be prostomes, and in case of deuterostomes there would be the embryonic blastopore giving rise to the anus. In the prostomes we have Schizocyllomates and Enterocyllomates. Now a new term has come into the scene, and what is coelom, schizocylom, enterocylom? What happens to be coelom? As I gave you a hypothetical organism, that is this, having an alimentary canal, that was a hypothetical bilaterally symmetrical organism, consider it as a prostome, and this would be the main body plan. Alright, this is the organism, supposedly this is the organism, this would be the mouth, this happens to be anus. Okay, this is what is the simple structure of an organism, that is a bilaterally symmetrical organism. This happens to the alimentary canal. Over here, what do we have is, we have mesodermal pouches. Not the mesodermal pouches, I can say that here lies a cavity inside which there would be the visceral organs which would be present. Talk about your heart, talk about your lungs and other organs, they are present inside a cavity known as coelom. That coelom is lining your gut. This alimentary canal is known as gut. It lines your gut, and inside these lies the visceral organs. Now the outermost layer of our body, that is, consider the example of the skin. We are also animals, so I am giving our own example. The outermost layer is the, if we talk about our embryonic stages, those embryonic stages, they have different germ layers, and those germ layers are only responsible for giving rise to different parts of our body, or we can say different organs and the organ system. So we are going to consider it at the level of embryonic stage. At the embryonic stage, outermost layer and the outermost germ layer, which forms different outer organs, is known as ectoderm. The innermost, which lines the alimentary canal, because alimentary canal is a hollow structure, so the inner one is known as endoderm, and in between, the layer which lies and surrounds the coelom is known as mesoderm. Okay, the layer between the ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm, ectoderm and endoderm is known as mesoderm, and in between there lies the cavity which is known as coelom. So we are going to see it from ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm's point of view, and we are going to get across the coelom as well. Now we were talking about acoelom, we were talking about basically schizocylom and enterocylom, and because we are talking about coelom, we find two more terms known as coelomates, acoelomates and pseudocylomates. We are going to see what those are. We are going to refer to acoelomates and pseudocylomates. Now in case of acoelomates, the body organization is so simple that there is outermost ectoderm. If we are seeing an organism from the point of view of ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm, there is an outermost ectoderm. We are talking about a blind sac plan or a tube within tube plan. We are considering tube within tube plan. This is the gut, the hollow cavity, which is lined by endoderm, and here lies parenchymatous mesoglea. There is no mesoderm, there is no coelom, there is no mesoderm. That means we have, in terms of germ layer, we have diploblastic and triploblastic organisms. Okay. When we talk about diploblastic organisms, there would be no mesoderm present. Instead, there would be mesoglea which would be present. Between the ectoderm and endoderm, the body will have mesoglea. This is ecto, this is endo, and this could be mesoglea. Alright, you might not refer it to mesoglea. Acoelomates are those organisms which do not have the mesoderm. Talking about pseudocylomates, as the name suggests, there is a pseudocoelom, means false coelom, which is present inside the organism. Now let's consider again. We have gut, which is lined by endoderm. Outside the gut there is an ectoderm, an ectoderm, that is the outermost lining. Inside the pseudocylomates, they are belonging to triploblastic category. So this is diplo, this is triplo, and rest all are triplo. What is triploblastic? Triploblastic is that all the three germ layers, ecto, meso and endo, would be present, and in diploblastic we have only ectoderm and endoderm which is present. There is no mesoderm that is present. In case of pseudocylomates, what we are going to find is there would be parenchymatous cells over here, there won't be any coelom, there would be mesodermal pouches which are present inside a parenchymatous arrangement or the cells which does not form mesoderm in proper. These are the mesodermal pouches subtended between the ecto and endoderm. So this is what is known as pseudocylometer arrangement. As you can see that we are finding the mesoderm, we are finding the ectoderm, we are finding the endoderm, but what we are not finding over here is that we do not have any cavity, as we discussed sometime before, that there happens to be a cavity around the endoderm, and it is surrounded by the mesoderm. So over here the mesodermal pouches are having the mesoderm only, but there is no cavity. So this is about acoelomates, and then we have pseudocylomates. Talking about schizocylome and the enterocoelom. Now I need to tell you that entero means anything which is related to gut. I am going to represent it over here. When we talk about schizocylome, over here we will discuss schizo, and over here it would be entero. When we talk about schizocylome, what we have is that supposedly this is ectoderm, here lies the endoderm, there is splitting of mesodermal pouches. There lies the splitting of mesodermal pouches. The splitting takes place in such a way so that there are two lateral pouches. So this is the mesoderm, and inside lies the cavity. This is the mesoderm which is surrounding the coelom. They are true coelomates, and there is coelom, and inside this coelom, the lateral pouches which are being formed, there would be visceral organs. In case of enterocoelom, as I told you, entero word is derived from gut. The mesoderm or the coelom that is being formed, the mesoderm originates from the ectoderm. So it would not be like this, it would be something like this. The lateral pouches which are being formed, they would be originating from the gut itself. So this is the main difference between schizocylomates and enterocoelomates. The gerostomos which are formed, they are enterocoelomates, while the prostomes which are formed, they are schizocylomates. Now we come to the nutrition. Because animals cannot form their own food, they would be heterotrophic in their nutrition, and they will be parasitic. They could be parasitic. They are usually predators. They have to depend on some other food, and that is ecological context.